This is Ward and Al on Canada Talks.
All right, so the documentary talk continues. We got a full house now.
Yep, super full.
Yeah, this is, we're at capacity pretty much for us here. So, a really exciting documentary. What's neat about this is it's everything that you expect it to be when you hear about it. You know, expect it to be touching and thought-provoking and heartwarming, but it's also very humorous at times. And I don't know, there's a lot of, hey, I didn't know that.
Well, and in the last documentary, we were talking about how, this In the Shadow of the Hill is making you learn about a different part of the world, and it's very important. And I was saying that the difference between the two docs that we're talking about today is I think they both have really important messages, but they're just both very different. And this is a documentary about authenticity and self-discovery that I really just found so great.
Absolutely. So let's bring in the gang behind the documentary Best and Most Beautiful Things.
We haven't figured out our gang sign yet, but I'm Michelle Smith. I'm the subject of the film.
Excellent.
Hello.
Gentlemen, tell the people who you are.
I'm Garrett, Zevgetis, director.
I'm Jeff Consiglio, producer and editor.
It's so, the variety of documentaries at HotDocs is so amazing to me. And this is a story that, you think is about Michelle, who you think it's the story of a blind girl. And then you realize...
You guys change it without telling me?
Yeah. And then you realize, oh, no, this is a story of growth and learning and growing up and self-discovery with a girl who also happens to be blind. It's so fascinating. What was it like, Michelle, letting cameras into your life?
Well, I've always been a bit of a camera hog ever since I was a baby. When my parents would turn on the home movies camera, I immediately transformed into a ham. I would run around. I would do the chicken dance. I would kiss the camera. I would do anything just to, get the camera's attention on me. And then I would want to watch it right afterwards. And then as soon as I could figure out how to operate one, I had an audio cassette recorder. This should show you guys maybe how old I am. I'm 23 years old. And so we still had those.
Old.
I know we still had those when I was a kid. So all of you kids or at home saying what's a cassette, just don't say it to me or else I'll feel old, and I'm not allowed to feel old yet. And I would
You're not old yet, don't worry.
I would record my own fake radio stations and make up my own songs and invite and pretty much wrangle people up into my room to interview them and ask them really stupid questions like, do you like to eat your own pants and things like that. And so when I as young as 6, when I was given the opportunity to be on the news, I was always up for it. So when I met Garrett and he asked me if I wanted to be interviewed for a documentary he was making, I was like, yeah, sure, whenever, just name the time and place and I'm there.
And what I love, and regular listeners of the show know this, I love people owning their truths and telling their story. And you are so honest right from word go.
Sounds like me.
But which is something that is really hard for a lot of people. And I found it so interesting that someone so young was just like, yeah, this is who I am, and this is how I feel right now, and this is what I'm thinking. Have you always just been hyper honest?
Yes, and the thing is I didn't always know how to express it. And I've always been, I could talk and sing before I could walk. But I didn't always know the words of how to express it or, exactly, what I was feeling in the moment. And luckily, as I got older, I figured some of that out, and I figured out the best ways for me to, be able to tell people that. But for me, if there's something about me that is unconventional, I feel more comfortable with the idea of shouting it from the rooftops than I do from hiding it all inside and not telling anyone. That makes me, like, pardon the harsh terms here, and I promise it's not a swear word, but it makes me kind of want to blow my brains out, the idea of, like, hiding who I am inside. So, yeah, it's just kind of the way I am naturally, so I guess I'm lucky in that way because it's made it so that, when I was a kid, I didn't really have any friends, but now I have tons of friends who are really awesome people and who I am so grateful for, and they're friends with me because I am the person that I am, and I think I'm a very happy Michelle now, whereas when I was a teenager, I was a very sad Michelle.
Right.
So.
Garrett, how did this come to be? How was this born, this documentary?
It was born because I was just sitting at home and I wanted to know if it was possible to make a documentary about something positive in the world, as opposed to what was wrong with the world. And the most positive thing I could think of was beauty. And so I literally just Googled beauty, and the best thing I came across from Googling beauty was this amazing quote by Helen Keller. And I knew that Helen Keller had gone down to school right down the street from me, Perkins School for the Blind in Watertown, Massachusetts. And so I did Google that, and then I came across an op-ed from the president of Perkins that said there's a 75% unemployment rate for the blind. So I thought, well, what documentaries do is humanize the other. So if I could just go volunteer there, and if it was and find a compelling story that was not focused on blindness, then I felt like I could make a contribution to humanizing, and we could do something about that unemployment rate. So I went there and I volunteered, and on the last hour of the last day of volunteering, I was standing there awkwardly with no one to talk to, and Michelle Smith came up and introduced herself to me, because that's what she does. She reaches out and she's constantly connecting with people. And after 5 minutes of talking with her and just sensing that indomitable, positive spirit of Michelle's, I said, "Would you like to be in a documentary?" And she said yes. So, and that was 6 years ago. So.
And Jeff, at what point did you get on board? Were you on board right from the beginning? Do you guys work together a lot?
No, we had never met before. He, I think it was about 2.5 years into production, maybe. He contacted me, cold called me, essentially, because he had seen another film that I had worked on. And he sent me some clips of the film, and I watched the clips, and the material was interesting, but Michelle was beyond interesting. So I wrote him back. I get a lot of people that cold call me, and usually, if I don't know who they are, I sometimes don't have the time even to respond to them. But I saw Michelle in this, and I wrote him back, and I said, "I don't know who you are, but are you focusing on that one girl?" And he said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're starting to focus on her." And I said, "Okay, let's talk." So we got on the phone, and we just started growing the film together at that point. We went for about another 3 years together working on the film.
I'm really big right now in general in my life, on authenticity and sort of, owning your stuff.
We're going to get along.
And watching this movie, I think there's something about really authentic people that is so compelling, and that's why people find you so interesting, partially, I think, Michelle, is because you watch this, and for someone so young to already just take ownership of her stuff. You said so many things in this documentary that I'm like, I figured that out about life yesterday, and it's just, yeah, there is something about you, and I think a lot of that has to do with authenticity, where people go, I want to know more about this girl. What is going on with this girl? Is that weird, or is that just, that's your life and you don't know any different?
Well, I definitely am weird, and I'm very happy about it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I say I'm weirdly wonderful and wonderfully weird. And that's not me bragging. That's how I manage to get people off my back when they say, "Oh, don't label yourself. You're so pretty. You're so nice." When I say I'm weird, that's how I get people off my back. Is I start bragging. But I, for me, I'm always sort of in sort of a pursuit of happiness, and I think I always have been, and I've always been kind of introspective. I remember when I was like 7 or 8 years old, or maybe even a bit younger, and I fully became aware of my consciousness, but I didn't know the words for it. So I ran up to my mother and I said, "Mom, I'm a person." And she's like, "What'd you think you were, an angel?" She didn't get it, and I was so frustrated because I didn't know how to explain it to her. So for me, to make life, bearable and to figure out what, because I have anxiety. I take medication for it now, but there would be times where people would be really condescending to me, and I would assume it meant that I was really immature, and that I was trying to be so mature, and I was basically being on my best behavior, if you will, at 20 years old, and at that point. I think I was like 20 or 21. I broke a comb, which made me really sad. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I've been internalizing this for years. And I have epiphanies like that. And I feel very lucky because I don't know how that happens. I just spend a lot of time in and around my own head. And so for me, part of that is I'm gonna have to find ways to be happy, because otherwise I'm just gonna be miserable, and I'm going to let my anxiety and my depression take over everything. And I'm a problem solver, and I'm stubborn, so I basically am like, I need to tell people this. I need to own this. And what I've discovered is once you own something like that about yourself, like once I owned that I'm a chatterbox, it was much harder for people to, either accidentally or on purpose, insult me by mentioning that I talk a lot. So, and that is true with pretty much everything that is about me. Once I discovered that I was a nerd and embraced it, people calling me a nerd, now I say thank you.
People can't hurt you with your stuff when you own it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's go into the history here a little bit. Okay, Michelle, for our listeners who don't know anything about you and they're learning now, were you born blind?
I was born legally blind. As far as we can tell, though, there are not very good tests for babies because babies can't talk about what they can see and can't. I've always been able to see exactly as much as I can see now, or pretty much anyway. When I was a baby, it wasn't until I was 3 months old that my parents finally went to an eye doctor, and they called them and said, "Your daughter is blind." And then months later, when I was starting to sort of do assisted walking with like a little like baby walker, and I reached out and grabbed my cup without having to feel for it first. And my dad ran over to my mom, who was napping on the couch, and was like, "Michelle can see." And I think that actually kind of symbolizes the kind of person I would grow to become, because I'm very stubborn, and if I can help it, I'm gonna get what I want and what I need, and I'm gonna figure it out. And luckily, over the years, I've become more resourceful and in getting help from others as well. And so me reaching out there and being like, "I'm thirsty," and just going over and just grabbing it off of the counter, that being the first time my dad realized that I could see some is I think very fitting, strangely. But yes, I have been blind since birth.
Well, and one of the things that comes up in the movie is that at some point you were diagnosed with Asperger's, and
Yes.
one of your teachers after you left school mentions maybe looking into that diagnosis. And I'm not a doctor, but I have to say, from what I know about Asperger's, you seem really well connected to other people. Is that something that is still, is that diagnosis still apt for you?
I am much more likely to use the term autistic or on the spectrum or something like that,
Right.
instead of Asperger's now. And that's not because I don't think it's a valid way to describe yourself. It's no longer a diagnosis, but I still think that it's a valid way to describe yourself, especially if you were diagnosed before that stopped being a diagnosis. I can only imagine how difficult it would be to be like, well, now my condition, like now it has a different name, you have to switch over, and famously people with autism don't like change, so of course, makes sense. But, for me, what I've sort of figured out is that a lot of people who just talk to me and don't deal with me in a work environment where they're like either my coworker or my boss, and they're telling me to do stuff and expecting me to figure out that after the third time they tell me to do it at the same time in the same place, I will know to do it the next time, which I don't. No matter how hard I try, I still, my brain does not catch those specific kinds of patterns. People who don't know me through things like that all seem to say that. He knew me in English class, and that's one of those classes where creativity abounds. And in creative ventures, as long as they're not like hands-on, like drawing and things like that, I'm usually pretty good in those classes. But the other thing is that people, and this, I'm gonna get a little feminist on you. Our society is so male centered. So this is probably why this is true. And no, I'm not accusing you or anyone else who has been concerned that maybe I don't have autism of this. But our society is very male centered, and a lot of the symptoms of autism, and this is very generally speaking, differ between men and women. Women tend to be more social. Women with autism tend to be more social and more likely to go out and make friends, and just maybe not get all the social cues, or understand when they're deviating from the norm, or pick up on those things that would be really important in a workplace but wouldn't come up if you're just like my friend. So that's a common question, and luckily I have that answer. And no, I have not been re-diagnosed, but I know how I feel in my brain, and I've talked to lots of people with autism, and it clicks in my brain. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. That is fascinating.
Thank you.
I didn't know that a lot of the symptoms that are talked about tend to be the ones that affect men.
Mm-hmm. Well, how many stories have you seen of autism with women? With a woman with autism?
It's true.
That is totally true. Mm-hmm. Any books I've read or anything like that have all been male centric.
Movies, TV movies, any of that. Yeah. It's always been male centric. Yeah.
Oh, damn the
We're always the
patriarchy!
problem. We're always the problem.
Well, now I have a question going back to it, and we're speaking to we're speaking to the gang behind Best and Most Beautiful Things, which, by the way, just today was awarded the Special Jury Award for Documentary Film at the IFBB. What is that? The
IFFB.
IFFB.
Independent Film Festival of Boston.
Kick ass. 75% unemployment rate for the blind. Is there a common, or are there common careers for the blind? Do people who are blind often follow similar paths?
It's very interesting that you say that. One that's very sort of unusual and catches people off guard is that in Japan, most people who are blind, or a lot of people who are blind, go to massage school. And actually, blind people from other places, especially in Asia, oftentimes come to Japan to go to massage school, because the idea is that because you're using your sense of touch more than your sense of sight, if you have any sense of sight at all, you'll be better at being, a massage therapist. And so I know there's that, and there are specific companies that hire people with disabilities to work, and things like that. But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of people that I know who are blind and have jobs have like low paying, like kind of monotonous jobs, because it's hard for people to find a job, so they become like less picky. Not to like diminish anyone who has a job like that, but a lot of times that's not their first choice.
Yeah.
Right. It's a job to do a job.
Yes, it's a job to do a job and to make money. And sometimes, I don't know, like with me, doing repetitive tasks can be quite cathartic, especially if I can listen to my iPod at the same time. But, that's another thing entirely. But yeah, it's really, there are quite a few blind artists, but not a huge number. But of course, they stand out. People remember, Stevie Wonder, he's blind, and which reminds me of like how I hate it when people come up to me and say, "Hey, you know that blind guy who climbed, Mount Everest?" And it's like, yeah, and it seems like they're saying, "Get on it." It's like,
Start climbing.
it's like he was not helped by the fact that he was blind.
Yeah.
Like it was a superpower.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I'm not Daredevil. it's it's a matter of he wanted to climb a mountain.
What is it with Hollywood and blind people apparently being lawyers? Like I've seen
this is
so
a
many
new thing
TV
I have
series.
not seen.
Yeah, I've seen over the years in TV series and movies, blind people are often not just Daredevil, but they're often lawyers for some reason.
Yeah, that's a weird choice.
Well, like in
Every law show at some point.
In the Supreme Court, there's the blindfolded woman with the scales. Maybe that's why.
Oh, because Liberty's
Lady
blind.
Justice.
Yeah,
Lady
Justice
Justice.
is blind.
Justice is blind.
Maybe that's what it is.
Just like love is blind. Makes me wonder what other careers some blind people are in.
There you go. I'll give you.
In the, at one point in the movie at a Pride celebration, you gave a really compelling speech.
Yes, with that tie-dyed rainbow Hello Kitty. Her name is Miss Fabulous, the Pride Kitty.
Sweet. Well, do you have? And at that point, I think I texted our producer and I was like, "This girl is an effing champion." It was so great. Are you doing more public speaking? Is that something you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do more public speaking, and I've enjoyed like all the interviews, and I've enjoyed all the Q&As after the films, after the screenings of the film, and there are tons of things that go through my head where I think I should be a public speaker. Because I feel like maybe it's possible that these things might help other people. Like this would not be as potent through audio form because we're on the radio, of course. But a lot of times I kind of want to ask people who seem to think I'm so high functioning, is it because I'm skinny and white and pretty and I can dress myself and wear coordinated clothes? Because I know that a lot of people in our society think that way. It's very, it's very much about appearance and things like that.
I think you have a real gift for words.
Thank you.
And it's so interesting, to know that expressing yourself was a struggle for you in the beginning, because I think you come across with your words as, I don't want to say wise beyond your years, because you're wise and you're young, right? But it's that you seem to have figured a lot of things out about the world and how it operates and its biases and all that kind of stuff. That I think you doing more talking. I'm always super honest about what has happened in my life and what I deal with in my life, because I feel like I'm okay talking about my truths and a lot of people aren't. And they're scared and alone in their truth, right? And I think you're really good at talking about yours and could probably be a voice for a lot of people. There's
a scene in the movie where I say something like, if a blind girl can do it, maybe I can. And I know that the world thinks like that sometimes. And that's not necessarily the best way to think, but if I can help someone who thinks that way to, realize that they can, speak up and say, hey, I'm gay, or hey, I'm into this alternative lifestyle, or hey, I'm just me, then maybe that would be great. And I think the reason I know so many words and I use them, quite aptly, and not to brag, is because when I was little, I had situations like that thing with my mom where I said, I'm a person, and I got so frustrated because I didn't know the words and I didn't know how to convey to her what I was feeling.
Right.
And because of that frustration and my stubbornness, I just learned more and more words, and I think it was definitely, usually not a conscious thing. I can only think of a few instances in my life where I was like, oh, that's a word I need to use more now. It just sort of happened. So,
Right.
yeah.
There's one thing that Michelle says a lot that I think about a lot. Michelle will say this line, use your words. And a lot of times you'll say this, right, Michelle? If people come up to strangers will come up to her because they think she's incapable or something like that, and they grab her arm to like lead her somewhere.
Yeah.
And you'll say, use your words.
Yeah,
you know?
just talk to me. Yeah. And I try not to say that too much because it is a phrase that has been used towards me very condescendingly when I've pulled away from people in the past. But it does come in handy sometimes. I'm like, use your damn words. I just, like, it's like, no, don't grab my arm and drag me. I don't need help walking to the bathroom. I need help knowing where it is. So, that's definitely a big part of it. But I think the phrase you might be thinking of is when I am stumbling over my own words, because sometimes I talk really fast because my brain moves faster than my lips, and sometimes that doesn't always go too well, as I say, words, Michelle, or I say, sorry, I forgot how to talk. Those are my two things that I say when I forget how to talk.
Well, Garrett, this is this is your directorial debut doing this. What's next for you?
You crushed it.
Oh, we crushed it.
Yeah, Garrett's great.
This is an excellent team that you guys have put together.
All the people
Absolutely.
who work on the film are amazing people. Sarah, Jordan, Kevin, Claudia, Ariana, like Brian, Brad, Ross.
It takes a village to raise a movie, eh?
I just wanna make sure everyone gets their
Shout out.
their shout out. And my mom, hi mom,
Julie Smith.
Julie Smith. Yep, that's my mom.
Well, yeah, and I just wanted to go back. Jeff Consiglio was being kind of humble earlier when the way we needed an editor, and I just thought about my dream editor would be the person that edited the film that inspired me to work in documentary, and it was a film called War Dance, and Jeff was the editor, and I just Googled his name and then sent him some footage, and his film's been won an Oscar, nominated for another Oscar, Emmy, and so then, but
You pestered him until he had to call you
absolutely,
back.
yeah, I see. And but the other important thing is we're going to a festival upcoming, this Bentonville Film Festival, the Gina Davis's Film Festival. It's about it's films that are made by women, and because we have two extremely incredible female producers on this film. One is Jordan Salvatoriello and one is Ariana Garfinkel. Very proud of that. And then I also want to say that it was a principle of mine at the beginning of this film that if film was going to be about a young woman, that I wanted to have the cinematographer to be female, and so that it was a female eye looking through the lens and getting that intimate with Michelle. And so the two cinematographers were Jordan Salvatoriello and Sarah Ginsburg. So the next thing would be to hopefully work with the same team.
That's a good goal. That's a good goal to have.
They're an awesome team.
Michelle, what's next for you?
Oh my goodness. Everything's a little crazy right now because I'm traveling, and some of the stuff with my online presence is in sort of a flux. I'm sort of doing some YouTube changes and changing my channels, and I'm gonna have 2 channels now because I was acknowledged by a YouTuber who does toy reviews, and he has like 800,000 subscribers, and he says he's gonna send some people my way, and I want to make a G-rated toy channel and then a R-rated whatever the hell I want to say vlog channel, and like channel where I can like rant and just make videos, I don't know, of my cat and stuff.
Cat videos do so well.
Yeah.
She's so fuzzy and cute. She's my favorite character in the movie.
The film is called Best and Most Beautiful Things, and you can see it at HotDocs this week. You can see it Wednesday at 8:45 at the Scotiabank. You can see it Friday at the TIFF Lightbox Theater at 7 p.m. You can see it Saturday at 10 a.m. at the TIFF Bell Lightbox Theater as well.
If you are not in the Toronto area and can't make it to HotDocs, go to Best and Most Beautiful. Did I add an extra word?
No.
Okay, for a minute I was like, did I say bestandmostbeautifulthings.com and find out how you can see this movie. Really, it's really so beautifully done, guys, and so compelling, and just zips by.
It's really funny that you were like so concerned about not saying the name of the film right, because when you go places and people are like, hey, like, welcome the cast and crew of the best and the most beautiful the things the.
Yeah. I thought I added a the. I thought I put a the in there.
Thank
and I was
goodness.
Like,
And our executive producer is the executive producer of Friends, the TV show Friends, and him and his Claudia Bright. He's Kevin Bright and Claudia Bright, and so Kevin is one of the ones that made sure that this film was entertaining and zipped along, like you said. So.
and it does, yeah. So amazing.
Thank you so much for being here, gang. It was really
Thanks for having us. It
really
was
wonderful.
a blast.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And we'll take a break.
And we will be back with more after this. You are listening to Ward Now on SiriusXM, channel 167.